Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Likon Onobanjo. The top stories at this hour. Peter Obi submits one-term proposal to Atiku-led coalition as opposition groups close ranks ahead of 2027 elections. Supreme Court adjourns judgment indefinitely in Edo governorship disputes between Governor Monday Okpewolo and PDP's Asue Ighodalo. Jihadist fighters in Mali launch coordinated attacks on an army post near Senegal border. Details to come your way shortly. We begin the news in Abuja, where the Supreme Court has indefinitely postponed its final verdict in the contentious Edo State governorship election dispute between Senator Monday Okpewolo and Asue Ighodalo of the People's Democratic Party. Justice Garba Lawal, who presided over the case, stated that the ruling date would be determined after all legal submissions are reviewed. Ighodalo, through his legal team, called for the nullification of Okpewolo's declared victory, arguing that he had received the highest number of valid votes. However, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, represented by senior advocate Kano Agabi, urged the court to dismiss the appeal. Agabi argued that Ighodalo and the PDP could not challenge the election's legality and still seek its benefits. Well, still in Abuja, delegates are beginning to arrive for a high-level coalition meeting of the African Democratic Congress. The meeting comes on the heels of a major leadership shift within the party, with former Senate President David Mark recently selected as the national chairman. We now bring you more stories of that in our subsequent bulletins, even as we look at other stories now. As a political horse trading hits up ahead of the 2027 election, the Labour Party's presidential candidate in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, has submitted a single-tenure proposal to the opposition coalition for consideration. The national coordinator for Obidient Movement Worldwide, Yunusa Tanko, disclosed this during the conferment of a chieftaincy title of Sarki Maskan, that is a war hero on the former Anambra State governor. The Obedient coordinator expressed optimism that the ongoing coalition would align with Obi's four-year ambition. He confirmed that Obi's four-year single-tenure proposal has formally been submitted to the opposition coalition, being championed by opposition figures like former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, the immediate past governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, and former Senate President David Mark for scrutiny. We also tell you that prominent leaders of the People's Democratic Party met on Tuesday in Abuja, where they accused the APC-led federal government of economic mismanagement, worsening insecurity, and a steady erosion of democratic values. In response, they resolved to support a coalition of like-minded political actors committed to unity, accountability, and credible elections in 2027. Earlier on the news, Kaj Onu, a political analyst, joined us to shed more light on the matter.
Nothing wrong with having your foot in two doors. That's what you've seen quite a lot of them do. If they have been in PDP and didn't say when the party was destroyed, then there's nothing wrong if they move on. So because being inside has not been part of looking for solutions. And that's what I will tell those who are leaving. But I believe the PDP will come back. I have no doubt about it. If the PDP sees that those who are working with Mark, like Atiku and Co, have moved out, I think they will not come back together and fix themselves. They have had an Atiku Abubakar issue. If we just pray, if it is true that Mark, Atiku, and others can move on, I have no doubt the PDP can fix itself and then be able to do zoning, and then they can rebuild.
And away from politics to infrastructural development, President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday inaugurated the dualized and upgraded Ushafa to War College Army Checkpoint Road and other ancillary roads in Buhari Area Council. The president was represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, who joined the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and other high-ranking government functionaries, the contractor and politicians at the event.
Today we mark not just the commissioning of a road, but the fulfillment of a promise. For too long, the journey between Ushapa and the War College Army Checkpoint has been a test of endurance. Every commuter, every trader, every student, and every health worker who has traveled this road has felt the burden of delay and difficulties. That story changes today. With this project, we have transformed a path of frustration into a corridor of opportunity. These dualized and upgraded roads will not only ease traffic congestion, they will breathe new life into economic activities, improve access to education and healthcare, and uplift the overall quality of life for the good people of Ushapa, Buhari, and the neighboring communities. So I'm immensely excited to share with you the memory of this day as we gather to commission the dualized and upgraded Ushapa, War College, Army Checkpoint roads, and other ancillary roads here in Buhari Area Council.
For the first time in the history of FCT, no president or vice president or senate president or speaker or minister had gone to area council to flag up projects, not to talk about commissioning projects. This is the first time a sitting president, a vice president would go to the satellite towns to identify with them, to tell the people in the satellite town, as we are doing for the city, so also we care for you. Mr. President, but personally in Kwale, today you have come here in Buhari. On Friday, you will be in Babalada.
Let's talk security now. In Lagos, the State Police Command has called on school proprietors across the state to promptly report any suspicious activity as part of its renewed efforts to safeguard educational institutions from emerging security threats. The State Commissioner of Police, Olondare Jimoh, said this at the unveiling of Schools Protection Squad in Ikeja. News Central's Victor Mbadike has more.
Schools and students have become soft targets for attacks by criminals across the country, leading to the closure of these schools, consequently denying them of learning. These growing threats have necessitated the urgent need for practical and proactive measures to protect the educational sector. In response, the Nigerian Police Force has introduced the Schools Protection Squad, a special initiative aimed at preventing attacks and enhancing the safety of students and educators. In Lagos, stakeholders gathered at a forum in Ikeja to discuss the initiative.
School insecurity is not only a breach of the right to education, it is a discrete threat to global peace and human capital development. It challenges the international commitment to Sustainable Development Goal 4 SDG, ensuring quality education, and Goal 16, promoting peace, justice, and strong institutions. I urge our schools, parents, and community leaders and communities to work in consonance with the security agencies as we champion the cause of security, safety, and well-being of our children.
These policies, programs.
According to Global Coalition to Protect Education from Attack, over 5,000 attacks were recorded on schools between 2020 and 2022, affecting more than 22,000 individuals and disrupted the right to education across 28 countries. The Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Olondare Jimo, consequently emphasized on the need for vigilance and cooperation.
To the students and pupils here today, you are our heartbeat and the heartbeat of this initiative. Your education is our priorities, and your safety is our obligations and mission. I encourage you to stay vigilant, report suspicious activities, and participate in safety programs in the schools and at home. Your voices matters, and we are here to protect you.
The IGP also announced that training programs will be rolled out for educators, school administrators, and security staff to equip them with the skills to recognize, report, and respond effectively to potential concerns. In Lagos for News Central TV, Victor Mbadike.
We go on a break on the... Many thanks for staying with us. The news continues in Rivers State, where youths from Ogoni communities stormed Port Harcourt, the state capital, in protest against alleged attacks and killings by suspected headsmen. The demonstrators, under the banner of the South-South Youth Initiative, marched through major streets and converged on the Rivers State Police Command headquarters as they presented a formal petition calling for decisive security measures. The convener, Xavier Oscar, expresses deep concern over perceived inaction of law enforcement agencies in addressing the alleged killings.
I want to express my displeasure. One of my displeasure is, yesterday, we received a call on Sunday that because of the signal of this protest, that the Commissioner of Police will want to talk to us or want to address us. We received that call from the OC or the 2YC SIB. The 2YC SIB. When we came to honor that invitation, what the OC SIB informed us was that we should go home and dialogue with our killers. What the SIB, OC SIB informed us is that we should go home and go for dialogue. That he has been calling the headsman, the chairman of the Fulani headsman, and that they have not been able to get him, and that we should not go ahead and do any protest.
Good afternoon, great Ogoni people. My name is Al-Hassan Kawe. I'm a Deputy Commissioner of Police. Personally, the Commissioner of Police is supposed to have been here to address you people, but just as the OCSID told you yesterday, not that he wasn't ready to talk to you, but because of other important commitment as yours. So that was why even today he's somewhere along Igirita Road attending to some other important matters. My Commissioner of Police has been very, very serious with the issue of herdsmen and the community where they live. I've been a witness to several meetings he has held with them. And on several occasions, he encouraged the various DPOs and area commanders to have a stakeholder meeting with them in order to come out with a solution to all these crises we've been having. I am very sure, and I assure you, that he will never joke with your request, and I am sure he's going to take a very drastic decision on this and ensure that this menace come to an end.
Still in Rivers State, the recent reconciliation between the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara has been welcomed by many. For one women's group, it is the answer to months of fervent prayers. News Central's Biola Festus completes the report.
The declaration of emergency rule in Rivers State on 18 March had brought governance to a halt, triggering concerns among political stakeholders, civil society groups, and the public. But the announcement of a reconciliation deal between the suspended governor and the FCT minister has sparked fresh hope for political stability.
All agreed to work together with the governor, and the governor also agreed to work together with all of us. With the help of Mr. President and the agreement of the leaders of the states, the rural leader, peace has returned.
The Rivers Women Unite for SIM, a vocal pro-federal group, says the peace pact is an answer to months of prayers. They've been at the forefront of calls for dialogue and the reinstatement of the suspended executive and legislative arms of government.
We thank our dear President, FCT Minister. We thank our dear Governor, Assembly members for agreeing to this peace.
Many residents had resigned themselves to the realities of emergency rule, but the persistence of these women is now being hailed as key factor to pushing political actors back to the negotiation table.
While we were, fighting and arguing about who was right and who was wrong, they took a detour, went on a different direction, because at a point where it was very difficult for people to even raise a voice, at the point where everyone was scared, at the point where people were taking sides, at the point where everybody went home, they stood firm. Look at what is happening today. The governor is out, made peace with the minister has made peace with the governor, and both of them are together again like the way they were in the beginning. This couldn't have been possible. Of course, people went to court, people demonstrated on the street and all of that, but it didn't bring about the needed solution.
They are now calling on President Bola Tinubu to lift the suspension and fully restore democratic institutions in the state.
As we praise God, we are looking forward to that glorious day when our governor will be reinstated. I can assure you the whole state is waiting for that day, and there will be so much joy in Rivers State, and progress and development will be restored to this state.
With both parties pledging to give peace a chance, all eyes are on the presidency to make the next move. In Rivers, for News Central, Biola Festus.
And now today's breaking story. Gabriel Dewan has resigned as the Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly. News Central's Chizobayuwe reports that the following has actually resigned. And of course, the members of the Assembly immediately elected Nalong Daniel as the new Speaker. The development came during an emergency sitting of the members of the House held at the temporary Assembly complex at the Old Government House in Jos. The new Speaker was a former majority leader in the 9th Assembly and represents Mikang State constituency. He was unanimously chosen by the members to lead the 24-member Assembly. Well, details from some quarters say the development comes after a closed-door session between the Governor, Caleb Mutfwang, the former Speaker, Gabriel Dewan, and other lawmakers. Well, details of this will be brought to you in our subsequent bulletins. Talking diplomacy now, the House of Representatives has called on the federal government to act swiftly to avert possible sanctions over the non-remittance of Nigeria's financial contributions to the Secretariat of the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States. This alongside motions addressing bandit attacks, gully erosion and the consideration of multiple legislative proposals shaped deliberations at Tuesday's plenary. News Central's Edong Joseph brings details from the Green Chamber.
I have an announcement coming from Honorable Isa Mohammed Anka.
The week's plenary began with announcements and the presentation of petitions, including one from a coalition of civil society organizations seeking a probe into an alleged contract scam, and another from Okori Nnamdi on the non-implementation of a Supreme Court judgment.
Mr. Speaker, this is a coalition by civil service society organization call for urgent investigation into alleged multi-billion contract scam, massive official corruption, diversion of public funds, contract splitting, and ceding of police barracks to cronies, Mr. Speaker, this letter is addressed to you, and the prayers are well engrafted here.
Through motions of urgent public importance, the House urged the federal government to take decisive action against rising cases of banditry in parts of Niger and Kwara states. Lawmakers also demanded immediate settlement of Nigeria's outstanding contribution to the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States to forestall international embarrassments.
I was aware that a tomorrow Patigi local government area share boundary of Kogi, Niger State, both which have had their bitter experience with armed banditry and kidnapping for ransom. Ours is also informed of the very recent introduction of banditry and kidnapping activities to Edu and Patigi local government area of Kwara State.
Also aware that according to available records, Nigeria's cumulative assessed contribution to the OACPS stands at 1,119,979 euros, 86 cents.
The day's legislative work continued with the consideration of 10 bills for the establishment of new educational and health institutions. 6 progressed to the third reading, while 4 skilled the third reading. The House also passed motions requesting INEC to create additional state constituencies in Ndokwa East, Ndokwa West, and Uwani in Delta states. A separate resolution addressed the urgent need for erosion control in Mashi, Dotsi Federal Constituency of Katsina State. Shortly after, the House resolved into the Committee of the Whole to adopt report from its Committee on University Education and Health Institutions. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
In a related development, President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to deepening collaboration with St. Lucia in education, culture, and technology. The president visited the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College in Montfortune, Castries on Tuesday, the 4th day of his state visit to St. Lucia. He announced a cultural exchange opportunity for the college's performing arts group following a stage performance, while reaffirming Nigeria's commitment to Afrocentric policies and South-South cooperation.
This gift is being...
First, let me put a stamp of our acceptance to the list of MOU already shown. Nigeria must be there. And to the cultural group, luckily I have the Honorable Minister of Culture and Tourism present here. Can you stand for recognition? I think on behalf of yourself, myself, and the country, I personally offer a trip at their convenience to come and mix with the talents that we have in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has faced criticisms for offering scholarships to students from St. Lucia and other Caribbean countries to study in Nigerian universities. President Tinubu announced that the scholarship program for students from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to study in Nigerian universities will commence in the next academic year. Speaking earlier on the news, an education consultant and policy analyst, Professor Yomi Fawemi, argued this move was ill-timed given the country's severe education crisis. Professor Fawemi said the president should prioritize fixing Nigeria's education system instead of extending scholarships abroad.
If
we really want to, I personally feel that announcement was just a feel-good gesture announcement. For one, is that the St. Lucians asked for a scholarship scheme from Nigeria. No, we did not hear that from their speech. It was the president that made the request. So for me, I think it's an economic thing. 200,000 people. I remember St. Lucia has, I think, 4 universities. Some records show 3, some records show 4. So they are not, they have enough. When you think about 200,000, you're talking about a population less than Ekpe or less than a part of Ikeja, and there are 3-4 universities. So universities is not their problem. So maybe the president just wonders, what can I announce that will make St. Lucians happy and respect me for that and applaud me for that. But I don't know which St. Lucian will be coming to Nigeria because of this scholarship. I also wonder the contradiction. The president announcing that, I was wondering, what is he really talking about? Because if you check our educational sector, in April this year...
A break we'll do here on the news. When we return, we'll bring you more stories. Don't go away. Now we'll tell you that the Senate on Tuesday confirmed 2 nominees for the Nigerian Law Reform Commission following the presentation of a committee report, even as one nominee declined her appointment. It also debated and passed for a second reading a bill seeking the establishment of a Federal University of Technology in Odupani, Cross River State. News Central Sigir Ibrahim tells us more.
Plenary began with the confirmation of appointments into the Nigerian Law Reform Commission, where 2 out of 3 nominees scaled the Senate's approval.
The committee, after the screening exercise, deliberated on the nominees' suitability for appointment as chairman and full-time commissioner of the Nigerian Law Reform Commission, and hereby makes the following observations and findings. That the appointments of the nominees satisfy the requirements of Section 2, subsection 1 and 2 of the Nigerian Law Reform Commission Act 2022 and the Senate Standing Orders of 2023.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, praised the work of the Judiciary Committee and confirmed the appointment as recommended.
Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Professor Dakas C.J. Dakas, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, representing North Central, for appointment as Chairman of the Nigerian Law Reform Commission? Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Dr. Uchenna Eugene Okulucha, representing South-South, for appointment as Commissioner of the Nigerian Law Reform Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Next up is the bill seeking to amend the Federal Universities of Technology Act to create a new institution in Odupani, Cross River State.
This Federal University of Technology in Odupani will not only bridge the educational gap in our region, but also serve as a vital incubator for innovation, particularly in emerging sectors like fintech, which is one of the fastest growing industries in Nigeria today.
Technology is the most veritable tool that can be deployed to leapfrog our economic development.
To provide for the establishment of the Federal University of Technology Odupani in Cross River State and for other related matters, 2025.
The bill was then referred to the Committee on Tertiary Education for further legislative action. Meanwhile, the Senate also postponed the Northwest Zonal public hearing on the review of the 1999 Constitution, scheduled for July 5th in Kano State. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, says the postponement is in honor of Alhaji Aminu Dantata, billionaire businessman and philanthropist who died on Sunday, June 30th.
The Senate resolved to observe 1 minute silence in honor of the late Alhaji Aminu Dantata, and also resolved to postpone the Zonal Constitutional Conference of the Northwest to a date to be mutually agreed between the stakeholders of the Northwest as soon as the Deputy Senate President is back from Saudi Arabia.
Akpabio explained that the public hearing will take place in the remaining 5 geopolitical zones in the capital cities of Borno, Plateau, Enugu, Akwa Ibom, and Lagos as their respective locations. In Abuja for News Central, Sarki Ibrahim.
Let's tell you about the NNPCL, a coalition of civil society organizations, including the Conference of Nigeria Political Parties, is demanding a sweeping investigation into what it calls large-scale corruption at the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. As a press briefing in Abuja, the group issued a 21-day ultimatum to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to order an independent forensic audit and televised judicial probe into the finances of the state oil company under Mele Kyari's leadership. They are pointing to what they describe as industrial-scale corruption, highlighting 210 trillion naira in unreconciled transactions, $6.9 billion in unremitted oil revenue, and $7.1 billion in questionable crude swap deals. The coalition says the dismissal of Mele Kyari as group CEO is not enough, urging the president to launch a judicial panel and an audit covering NNPCL transactions from 2015 to 2024. To other parts of Africa now, jihadist fighters have launched coordinated attacks on Malian army positions across western Mali, including one near the border with Senegal. A communications officer for the Malian Armed Forces confirmed the assaults, calling them a part of a new wave of violence in the region. The attacks come as instability deepens in the junta-led country, which has seen a surge in militant activities following the withdrawal of international forces and growing isolation from Western partners. Mali, along with its Sahel neighbors, continues to struggle against jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The latest violence also raises concerns for regional spillover, particularly for Senegal, which has so far remained largely untouched by the Sahel conflict. Outside of Africa, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that Israel has agreed to the necessary terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. He urged Hamas to accept the proposal, warning that the situation would worsen if they refused. Representatives from Qatar and Egypt are expected to deliver the final ceasefire proposal to Hamas. These announcements come ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's planned visit to Washington for talks. Trump has been pressing both sides to negotiate a ceasefire and secure the release of hostages amid the ongoing conflict. The deal aims to pause hostilities and work towards ending the war in Gaza, though Hamas is yet to respond to the proposal. For more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, it's nice to have you around. Now, how close are we to this proposed 60-day ceasefire in Gaza?
Well, the thing we have to remember is just because President Trump posts something on Truth Social doesn't make it fact, doesn't make it concrete, and doesn't give us any depth into what the discussions have been between Israel and Hamas over the past 24 hours. Of course, everybody would love a 60-day ceasefire that would lead to an end to the war, but I think what we can glean from President Trump posting that, as well as him having Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming to the White House on July the 7th, which is next week, Monday, is that ceasefire talks are gathering pace and that perhaps Hamas and Israel are close to coming to a deal. I think at the moment, all eyes are on that meeting with Netanyahu and Trump next week, and to see what concessions, if any, the Israelis are prepared to make that will lead to Hamas accepting a ceasefire deal.
Well, Hamas is yet to respond, but then why would Israel want a 60-day ceasefire, probably not a permanent one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Now, that is because of domestic politics. Benjamin Netanyahu knows that certain right-wingers in his party want the war to continue, and he wants to stay in power. If those right-wingers decide that he isn't the best person for the job and isn't going to continue the war, then they will collapse his government, and that's not what he wants. He wants to stay in power for as long as possible. The right-wingers in his government are hungry for the war and hungry for the war to continue, and so that's why at the moment he is talking about a ceasefire and not a permanent end to the war in Gaza, and therefore will agree possibly to to only 60 days. But also, you have a situation where President Trump has called for Netanyahu's corruption trial to be scrapped. You know, he's going to be on trial for corruption, and without the prospect of that, without the prospect of potentially going to jail, then Netanyahu will be more willing to end the war, safe in the knowledge that the focus will not shift immediately to his own political and legal vulnerability. So at the moment, while this potential trial for corruption is going on, and while he has this government in place that is hungry for war, he is staying hungry for war himself. Therefore, we're talking about a ceasefire as opposed to a complete end to this terrible war.
Okay, so while all these are going on, tell us about the situation in Gaza right now.
On the ground in Gaza, it is as grim as it's ever been. Whilst our attention was on Israel and Iran, Gaza was still being bombed daily. Civilians were still being shot while queuing up for food. 20 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli airstrike that hit a popular seafront cafe that was frequented by locals, by journalists in Gaza City on Monday. And other regions in Gaza City have also been leveled pretty much by Israeli bombs over the past few days. So the explosions have never stopped. The killing of Palestinians queuing up for food has never stopped and continues whilst we're talking about potential ceasefires and trying to end this war.
All right. Thank you so much, Afia Hagen, for sharing these updates with us. Let's move on now. The Republican-led U.S. Senate has approved Donald Trump's flagship spending bill after a marathon voting session on the deeply unpopular package set to slash social welfare programs and add an eye-watering $3 trillion to the national debt. The sprawling text, headlined by a $4.5 trillion renewal of the president's first-term tax cuts, now heads to the House of Representatives. It faces unified Democratic opposition in the lower chamber and multiple Republicans balking at the deep cuts to health care, green energy subsidies, and food aid programs for the poor. Reacting to the approval, President Trump describes the development as music to his ears.
Wow. Thank you. You know, I'm waiting, listening to these wonderful words, and they are music to my ears, but I was also wondering how we're doing, because I know this is prime time. It shows that I care about you, because I'm here and I probably should be there, but we do care.
Well, we still have business and sports news to come, but that will be after this short timeout. Just stay with us. In business, the Nigerian Exchange Limited, NGX, revealed its half-year market index review on Tuesday, introducing significant challenges and changes to the NGX 30 index and other important indices. And following the market capitalization methodology, Aradel Holdings PLC and Wema Bank PLC have been added to the NGX 30, taking the places of Corn Oil PLC and Julius Berger Nigeria PLC. In sports, Nigeria's top table tennis player Quadri Arena has slipped from 23rd to 24th in the latest International Table Tennis Federation World Rankings, despite maintaining 1,140 points. His ranking is supported by strong performances at the 2025 African Cup in Tunis, where he finished second, and a semi-final run at the WTT Star Contender in Doha. Meanwhile, Fatima Bello rose 4 spots to 92nd in the women's rankings with 230 points, marking a major milestone in her career. Although she has not played since May, Bello benefited from updated rankings based on past results, including a semi-final finish at the African Cup and a quarter-final appearance at the 2024 African Championships. The Nigeria Football Federation has confirmed the selection of 16 referees for the 2025 Nigerian National League Super 8 playoffs, scheduled for July 5 to 12 at the Stephen Keshi Stadium in Asaba. The officiating team comprises top referees from both the Nigeria Premier Football League and the NNL. The tournament will be overseen technically by Dr. Alex Suleimana, with Ebola security handling fitness supervision. Among the selected are NPFL referees Solomon Aweng, Bashir Adamo, and Abubakar Zubairu, along with NNL counterparts like Stanley Chibuiko and Kalu Ezichi. The assistant referees also feature a balanced mix from both leagues. The NNL Super 8 will determine promotion slots to the NPFL.
Before the last election and immediately after the last election. And
Live now on your screen in Abuja, delegates are beginning to arrive for a high-level coalition meeting of the African Democratic Congress, and the meeting comes on the heels of a major leadership shift within the party, with former Senate President David Mark recently selected as the national chairman. But I'll take the live feeds from Abuja. Well, we'll continue to see as much as we can, establish quality connection with our correspondent in Abuja to bring you the live feeds of that coalition meeting. In the meantime, that is the end of the news at this hour, and we look at our major stories before we go. Peter Obi has submitted one-term proposal to Atiku-led coalition as opposition groups close ranks ahead of the 2027 elections. Supreme Court has adjourned judgment indefinitely in Edo governorship dispute between Governor Monday Okpewolo and PDP's Suego Dalo. We also told you that jihadist fighters in Mali have launched coordinated attacks on an army post near Senegal border. You can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Do watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Likon Omabanjo.